Dalam acara ini, Sam Evans selaku Senior Managing Director Delta Partners. So, how are you, Sam?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time for CNBC Indonesia. Glad to have you here. So you had a very great discussion today. And from this discussion, what are the current key trends and challenges you see in the telecommunication industry, specifically in Indonesia?
So I think we saw a few things, right? And we're seeing this more broadly in the industry. The first is the real increase in demand, consumption-driven demand, mobile becoming much more central to consumers' lives, connectivity becoming much more critical to enterprises, migration to the cloud. With that brings the need for localization of data centers, and we showed on stage today the increasing amount of hyperscaler data center facilities that are coming into the region over the next couple of years. And then what comes with that is proliferation of subsea cables. There's 150,000 kilometers of subsea cable that's going to be deployed, new subsea cable in this region over the next 3 to 5 years. So when you look at demand is growing, both in consumer and enterprise. You have the data storage and compute facilities here from the cloud providers, and then you have the investment in infrastructure. It's looking a very positive outlook for the region.
Okay, but on the other hand, how can telecommunication companies in Indonesia keep up with the latest trends and how they can develop strategies to stay competitive and relevant?
Yeah. So at the customer end, it's making sure that the customer stays absolutely central to everything the companies are doing. And speaking with Pak Derek Heng earlier from Telkomsel, well, he was talking about the criticality of customer centricity in the DNA of Telkomsel. I think that's absolutely important. But at the other end, if you will, there has to be consistent investment in infrastructure. We see this from some of Telkom Indonesia's 5 bold moves. But it's important that telcos are able to educate their investors and educate their partners and educate the government that ongoing capex investment is critical in fiber, in mobile connectivity, and then the platforms that sit on top of that to ensure that there can be continued service innovation, because it's that will allow these companies to retain their customer centricity.
Okay, talking about the 5 bold moves, from your perspective, is it a great strategy for Telkom Group?
Yeah, look, it's a very bold strategy to steal their words. I said on stage earlier today, sort of the 6th bold move is that they're doing these 5 bold moves together. We're seeing telcos around the world do these moves, the delayering and creation of infracos, the creation of enterprise service companies, really supporting sort of more digital startups, movements into FMC. We're seeing those around the world, but to be doing them at the same time in a market the scale of Indonesia that has the, let's call it the geographical complexity of Indonesia, that's highly impressive. It's great that the strategy is there. It's a clear strategy. It's been communicated effectively with stakeholders. So the first battle is won. Now it's about execution. And so we need to come back next year and see quite how much progress has been made.
And we're going to see how the execution later in the future.
Sure.
And on the other hand, in your opinion, how is the prevailing global sentiment, particularly considering the Fed's fund rate, interest rate hike nowadays, affect the telecommunication industry worldwide? And of course, here in Indonesia, it will affect to the capital of the companies. So how do you think about this one?
Yeah, there are a few points here. I think it's important that telcos stay on top of their cost base, right? Yes, there are great opportunities for growth, and we go back to the 5 bold moves of Telkom Indonesia. They're very much growth orientated. But at the same time, telecoms companies need to be looking for where they can get efficiency in their channels, efficiency in customer operations, field service operations, and so forth. That's really important. Now, with increasing interest rates, obviously capital is becoming more expensive. The bets that they can take, I think, if you go back a couple of years ago where interest rates were lower, it was easier to take bets. What I think we're going to see moving forward is probably less bets in terms of the volume of bets that telcos are willing to make, but the need to be decisive. And so I think we will see more bold moves because telcos don't have an option not to be bold, but I think we'll see less sort of experimentation plays because it's more expensive to test.
So the execution should be precise.
Execution is absolutely critical. we're entering a world where there are opportunities, but beyond the traditional telco business model. They can be in enterprise services, they can be through delayering into an infraco, they can be within video, they can be within gaming. They are different DNAs, they're different business models. It is all about execution. This cannot be taking the telco DNA and saying, we're now a video business, we're now a gaming business. You have to run a gaming business. I think Mark Halfinger, the CEO of Console Connect, on the stage this morning, spoke about when they acquired Console Connect into PCCW Global, they effectively said, Console Connect is a tech company, you've acquired us, your DNA needs to run us. That mentality was a couple of years ahead of the peers in the industry, and now they're starting to catch up. But that mentality of we are the DNA of the company that we want to be, not exporting a telco DNA, fundamental to execution.
Okay, that's very great actually. So on the other hand, what is your perspective on significant lack in infrastructure here in Indonesia compared to with developing countries compared to developed one? For example, for 5G, for the infrastructure, it's quite challenging here in developing country. As you know, that we have we are a country of thousands of islands here. So how do you see about this one, and what is your perspective?
I think here is where there needs to be, in Indonesia, like other developing countries, a very strong dialogue between the digital infrastructure providers and the government. Because what we're seeing, and government's national transformation programs in Indonesia and abroad rely on strong digital infrastructure to connect societies and empower the economies. And so, yeah, it is going to be challenging. Is the ROI there to build out 5G to all of Indonesia? Not quite yet. But is there, at a national level, an economic benefit for ensuring that everybody can be connected? Yes, there is. And it's important then to see which connections require 5G. Where is 4G good enough? Where could it be fiber to a point and then Wi-Fi? Yeah. We speak a lot in the ITW Global Leaders Forum about an infrastructure agnostic future. I don't think it's as much about, is this person 5G connected? It's, are they connected for the services that they require? And being flexible in terms of those services, the infrastructure that will provide those services, but having a very clear dialogue with government so they can understand the minimum returns on investment required to justify further infrastructure deployment, absolutely critical.
Okay, but the strategy for us, for Indonesia as a developing country, to catch up with the developed country, what do you think about the strategy itself?
So, it comes from two directions. It comes from, as I was saying before, that dialogue between government and infrastructure provider to ensure the build out of more digital infrastructure. That's fundamental. But it also comes from stimulating a service economy here. And you have some fantastic digital startups in Indonesia, right? So the Gojek, Tokopedia merger into Go2, Video.com, and many, many more that I'm not naming. Those companies stimulate demand. That demand percolates through to then create the case for more investment in infrastructure, and you create this circular reference, which is very positive for the economy.
So it comes from demand first.
It comes from demand first, but at the same time, in parallel, there needs to be that debate between infrastructure provider and government, so that government can provide a environment that's supportive for the infrastructure providers to continue to invest and invest and invest, so that as the services arrive, they can be connected.
Okay, so simultaneously.
Simultaneous.
Okay, so talking about the other topics in telecommunication and digital industry, how do you think about the digital security nowadays, and how the segmentation in this business, the prospect of this segmentation?
So digital security, I think, is fundamental. And what I believe we'll see more and more is digital security being used as a reference point for, can you trust your service provider? Can they keep your connection secure and your data safe? We saw in 2022 in Australia what happened when Optus had a fairly significant breach of customer data, both in terms of the churn impact on their network, but then also the cost to recover from that incident. And so I think we will see a lot more investment from telco providers in digital security. I think they will use it much more as a marketing message, but also potentially a product, because it ties into trust. And when you are either as an individual or as a company placing your entire life or business in a cloud, you need to ensure that it's secure. You need to trust every provider in that chain, the connectivity provider, the storage provider, and depending on the value of that information, you are willing to pay for it as well. So I think it's going to be a huge market and it'll be a growing market going forwards.
Okay. So it's still a blue ocean for you.
Look, I think the market is already relatively mature, right? It's not a new market, digital security.
Okay.
But I think we will see the relationship between digital security and customer centricity increase significantly. It'll become one of, I think, the key determinants, I believe, that customers will use when selecting their service providers.
Okay. Last question. What is your outlook on the future of telecommunication industry? Will satellite-based technologies significantly alter traditional BTS in the future?
I think if we look a few years into the future, connections will be under the sea, under the ground, through the air, above space. We're going to see an infrastructure agnostic set of connectivity where what does the end user want? They want to be connected at the level of service that what they're using it for requires. Does the user care if that connection is provided by a Wi-Fi, a 5G, a subsea cable, a satellite? As long as it meets the service specifications and the commercial model that is required to service that, they won't mind. So I don't think this is a question of will satellite replace mobile or will mobile replace fixed, or they will operate side by side and they'll come together to effectively provide a connectivity fabric where connectivity providers will orchestrate between the different infrastructures based on the availability of that infrastructure, the commercial effectiveness of that infrastructure, and ensuring that they can give the end user the quality of experience for the service that the end user requires.
Okay, because the demand will be bigger and bigger and bigger in the future.
The demand is increasing year on year on year. And what the service providers are doing is that they're saying, we can connect you for a gaming experience. We can connect you for a video experience. We can connect you for a cloud-based collaboration experience. Determining what infrastructure that goes over, the end user doesn't matter. What they care about is when they're uploading a document, it happens quickly. When they're playing a game, the latency is low enough that they don't get shot before they can shoot back. When they're watching a video, it doesn't buffer even if everybody else is watching because it's a live video. The actual transport layer that comes over, that's the responsibility of the infrastructure providers, the connectivity providers. And it's great that they'll have satellite to add on top of all the existing connectivity technologies they have.
From the company perspective, how is it the satellite-based compared to BTS? Because you see, one needs require more capital than the other one. So, on the perspective of the company, how is it?
Those segments are going to serve different customer requirements. So, satellite is great for certain forms of connectivity, particularly reaching very remote areas. Traditional towers are better for other forms of connectivity. I think we're going to look at, rather than it being transport-specific connectivity, it will be an equation that when a customer puts in their requirement, a service provider will solve to say, what is the right blend of infrastructures that I serve, recognizing that satellite has different economics to traditional mobile connectivity, that has different economics to fiber, has different economics to subsea. That will be worked out based on the service that needs to be delivered, what the customer is willing to pay, and the parameters of the service.
Once again, because the market is very huge and the demand is increasing each year, so both ways is going to be prospective.
Yeah, exactly. Demand will increase and increase and increase. And when we look at some of the use cases that are coming powered by generative AI and others, and the increase in number of endpoints of the network that are going to be connected, once IoT really gets going, the demand on existing infrastructure is going to be huge. There is going to need to be more subsea. There's going to need to be more mobile capacity. There's going to need to be satellite. Otherwise, we're going to get severe congestion in the networks.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam Evans, for being here with us on CNBC Indonesia. Thank you so much once again.
Cheers.
Nice to meet you. Have a great day to you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Dan pemirsa, demikian tadi perbincangan kami bersama dengan Sam Evans selaku Senior Managing Director Delta Partners langsung dari perhelatan BATIC 2023 di Nusa Dua Bali. Saya Syarifah Rahman, CNBC Indonesia, Beyond Business.